If you punch an address into your GPS today, you just expect to get there. The satellite tech is, well, it's basically flawless. But imagine if, I don't know, 40% of the time the GPS just drove you straight into a lake.
Yeah, you'd probably throw your phone right out the window.
Exactly. But that massive disconnect is actually what we are unpacking today in this deep dive when it comes to executive hiring. I mean, we have LinkedIn and applicant tracking systems and AI.
All these super high-tech tools.
Yeah, all these tools for finding talent. Yet a staggering 40% of all senior hires still crash and burn within 18 months.
Which is just wild when you think about it. And
Right.
to figure out why this system is so completely broken, we're pulling from Forbes Rutherford's foundational guide called The War for Talent.
And his comprehensive handbook, Secrets of a Professional Headhunter, the Hidden AI Job Market Handbook.
Right. Our mission today is basically to take his research and, turn it into your personal behavioral cheat code.
Okay, so let's unpack this 40% failure rate. Because my first thought is, are these people just lying on their resumes? Do they completely lack the technical skills?
You would think so, right? But the sources say this actually has absolutely nothing to do with technical ability. What's fascinating here is the data shows that 80% of involuntary terminations, so basically firings, are actually caused by a behavioral mismatch.
Wait, 80%, so it's almost entirely behavioral.
Yeah, exactly, because your behavioral DNA is, well, it's basically hardwired by your mid-20s. If a job requires a specific innate wiring and you just don't have it, no amount of technical training is going to fix that.
It's like trying to upgrade a diesel engine by, installing a software update.
That is a perfect way to put it.
You can send an employee to all the training seminars in the world, but if their underlying behavioral architecture doesn't match the job, it's just going to stall out.
Exactly. So companies are essentially hiring for the resume, but then they end up firing for the behavior.
But I have to push back here for a second. If companies already know this, why do job postings still demand these super rigid things like, you must have exactly 10 years of experience in this specific subsector?
Well, it comes down to something called narrow framing. Companies just fall back on gut instinct and arbitrary experience requirements because it feels safe to them.
Even though it empirically limits their options.
Right, exactly. It totally ignores actual performance predictors. But Rutherford's methodology replaces that gut instinct with actuarial science.
So like life insurance math, but for hiring.
Yeah, exactly like that. It calculates the statistical probability of your success by mapping your natural behavioral traits against the empirical demands of the role. And doing that actually boasts an 85% predictive accuracy in identifying high performance.
Okay, so if organizations are consistently crashing the GPS into the lake on this, how does this handbook help you, the individual candidate, navigate around all that wreckage?
Well, the guide essentially flips the script. First, Rutherford traces this systemic failure back over 40 years to show just how entrenched it is. Then to break that cycle, he developed the Rutherford Intel assessment.
Which shifts the focus completely.
Exactly. Instead of trying to guess what a company wants, you figure out your own innate wiring first, and then that guides you into mastering elite headhunter mechanics.
And here is where it gets really interesting for you as the listener. This behavioral approach is actually your absolute best defense against AI.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, automation can easily replace generic technical skills, but it definitely cannot replicate human behavioral DNA.
Right. That's why the math of the workforce stays stubborn. AI or no AI, 50% of any workforce is going to underperform. 25% will just meet expectations. And only that top 25% are the true elite high performers.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, using scientific alignment is how you differentiate yourself from that bottom 75%. You stop being just a generic applicant.
You start positioning yourself as the exact behavioral solution to a company's specific problem.
Exactly. The handbook also heavily stresses referral-based methods. It points out that your professional income tends to naturally mirror your 5 closest connections.
Right, because like attracts like. You simply aren't going to find that top quartile positioning by blindly applying on some public job board.
So what does this all mean for you? It basically means you have to stop drifting into roles by default.
Yeah, so many people end up in jobs just coasting on institutional inertia, staying at a company just because it's easier to stay than to leave.
Right. The ultimate benefit of this handbook is learning to intentionally position yourself. You want to be the answer to a very specific need.
operating in an environment that naturally pulls the absolute best work out of you.
Precisely.
So think about this. Are you currently performing adequately in your job just because you're following the default route? What if your ultimate high-performance zone, the place where your behavioral DNA actually thrives, is in a completely different industry you haven't even considered yet? Time to recalibrate the GPS.